Have you ever had a stranger walk up to you, look straight into your eyes, and say one sentence that makes your whole life feel fake? Because if you have not, you do not understand how loud silence can get in a single second. I was sitting in a small diner in Austin, the kind of place where the coffee tastes burnt and the booths squeak when you shift your weight. It was early gray outside, and I was half awake, half numb, scrolling my phone like it was a habit I could hide inside. Then she slid into the booth across from me like she had been looking for me for days. No smile, no apology, no warm-up. She locked eyes with me and said, "Your wife is sleeping with my husband. You think you know what you would do? You think you would stand up, shout, demand proof, call your wife right there, but your brain does something weird when the ground disappears under your feet." The world did not pause. It collapsed. My chest tightened. My hands went cold. The little noises around me, forks, cups, the cook yelling, all of it blurred like my ears were underwater. I tried to speak, and nothing came out. She leaned in slightly, like she was talking to a man who needed the truth delivered clean, and then she whispered, "Tonight, I want you to go out with me." That is when my brain finally caught up to my body. I stared at her like she had slapped me in public. I did not even know her name. I did not even know how she knew mine. And yet she was offering something that felt dangerous and impossible and, worst of all, like control. If you are listening and you think you know how you would handle that moment, no you do not. Because when your pride is bleeding and your marriage is already half dead, your morality stops being a speech and starts being a decision you make while your hands are shaking. I forced my voice out. "How do you even know who I am?" She did not blink. "I followed my husband," she said. "I watched him walk into a hotel with your wife. Then I paid someone to confirm what my gut already knew. Your name, your address, everything." She reached into her bag, pulled out her phone, tapped twice, and slid it across the table. I did not want to look. I wanted to push it away. I wanted the world to rewind 5 seconds so I could stand up and leave and pretend this was not my life. But my eyes dropped anyway. There she was. Rachel, my wife, laughing in a parking lot light like she was in a movie, her face tilted toward a man standing too close, his hand on her back like it belonged there. And in that one photo, I recognized the worst detail of all. It was not just that she was with him. It was that she looked alive. She looked like the version of her I had not seen in months. At home, she was tired. At home, she was distant. At home, she had that phone face, the glow on her cheeks. The back turned to me in bed like I was a piece of furniture that came with the house. But in that photo, she was bright, easy, warm, and it hit me like a punch. I had been starving, and she had been eating somewhere else. I pushed the phone back. My throat tightened, and the first words that came out of me were not anger. They were, "I am sorry." Not to her. To myself, because suddenly I understood something humiliating and simple. I was the last one to know I was being played. The woman across from me watched my face like she was taking inventory of the damage. Then she said, "Don't be sorry yet. The day is still young." Her voice carried something I could not name. Not kindness, not cruelty. Purpose. My voice came out smaller than I wanted. "What are you going to do?" She leaned back. "I have been married to him for years," she said. "We have a daughter. I am not here to cry in your diner. I am here to stop pretending." Then she leaned forward and said it again, slower, like she wanted to see if I had a spine. "Go out with me tonight." I stared at her. This was insane. This was wrong. This was the kind of thing people judge from the outside because they have never been inside a burning house. But the truth was, in Tadbooth, I did not feel like a husband. I felt like an accessory in someone else's life. And across from me was a stranger who looked at me like I was still a man. I heard my own voice before my brain finished the debate. "Okay," I said. "Where?" Her face shifted. The first real expression she had shown. "8 tonight," she said. "Velvet Oak Lounge. Don't be late." Then she stood up and walked out, like she had just lit a fuse and left me holding the match. I sat there staring at the empty booth, feeling the weight of my life tilt. People talk about betrayal like it is one moment. But the truth is, betrayal is a pattern you ignore until someone forces you to see it. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. I walked out of that diner and got into my truck and drove with no destination. Across the river, past job sites, past half-finished buildings where steel frames reached into the sky like skeletons, because I understood something ugly. Concrete is honest. A blueprint is honest. If something is off, it shows. But love can rot silently while you keep paying for the house it dies in. When I finally pulled into our street in Barton Hills, Rachel's car was not there. Of course it was not. It never was anymore. I stepped into our house and felt how cold quiet can be. No music, no laughter. Just the hum of the air conditioner pushing air through rooms that felt staged. Photos on the wall. Wedding picture, vacation smiles. All of it looked like props, like evidence of a life we once performed. I walked into our bedroom and stood in front of her closet. My hand hovered on the handle. This was the moment where you either keep being the good man who trusts his wife, or you become the man who checks. I opened the closet and reached up behind coats she never wore. My fingers brushed a box. I pulled it down. Old shoebox, shoved far back like it was hiding. Inside, receipts. Hotel receipts, dates that matched her so-called client meetings. Room charges. 2 guests, paid with our joint card. And beneath them, a small card with handwriting I did not recognize. Counting the days until I see you again, 1 letter at the bottom. A single initial, and somehow that was worse than a full name, because it meant it was casual for them. Familiar? Easy. My hands started to shake, but my mind went calm in a way that scared me, because I did not feel surprised. I felt confirmed. I closed the box like I was closing a casket. Then I looked at myself in the mirror and saw something I had not seen in a long time. A man who was done lying to himself. And as the sun started to fall, I realized I was not going to confront her like a movie. Not yet. Because the truth is, when you find out you have been played, the first thing you want is not revenge. It is control. And tonight, I had promised a stranger I would show up. Downtown Austin at night has a way of making pain feel invisible. The city lights make everyone look like they belong somewhere, like their lives are stable, like nothing is falling apart behind their eyes. I parked 2 blocks from Velvet Oak and sat in my truck with my hands on the steering wheel, breathing slow, trying to decide if I was about to become a man I would hate. Because here is the truth. Nobody says out loud, when someone betrays you, you do not just lose trust. You lose your identity. You start asking yourself what else you were wrong about. What else was fake? Who else is laughing behind your back? I walked in. Warm light, low music, conversations in soft pockets, the kind of place that feels expensive without trying too hard. And then I saw her. She was already there, sitting in a booth in the back, black dress, hair down, eyes steady, not smiling yet, like she was waiting to see what kind of man I really was. "You came," she said. "Did you think I wouldn't?" I answered, forcing steadiness. She watched me sit down like she was studying the cracks in me. I ordered whiskey. Neat. She ordered a cocktail I did not recognize. For a moment, we just sat there while the noise around us felt far away. Then I said the question that mattered. "What is this?" She rolled the glass between her fingers. "Maybe revenge," she said. "Maybe not. Mostly, I just want to feel something real for once. I am tired of pretending at home while he lives a double life." That sentence hit me harder than the photo, because it told me she was not here to play games. She was here because she was also drowning. I swallowed. "I get it," I said. "I've been acting in my own house for a long time." She nodded slowly, like that was the first honest thing she had heard in weeks. Then she told me about her daughter, about the math, about how leaving is not just heartbreak. It is custody, schedules, and rent, and insurance, and a child who does not understand why her parents are suddenly strangers. And something shifted in me. Because up until then, I had thought of her as a weapon, a tool, a messenger. But she was a human being, and she had a little girl sleeping somewhere, believing her father was still the hero. I asked her how long she had known. She said she had receipts, photos, a timeline. She said she watched me in the diner more than once, before she sat down. "I watched you," she admitted. "You looked like a decent man who didn't deserve this." That should have made me angry. Instead, it made me feel seen. We talked longer than we should have, not just about betrayal, about life, about the way people slowly disappear inside marriages without anyone noticing. And then she reached across the table and rested her hand on mine. No drama, no speech, just contact. And I realized something painful. Rachel had not touched me on purpose in a long time. At home, touch had become accidental, functional. A brush in the hallway. But this was deliberate, and it knocked the air out of me. We left the lounge and walked outside into the warm night air. We did not have a destination. We just walked, because going home felt like walking back into a lie. Halfway down the street, she asked, "When did you stop being happy?" I answered honestly. It wasn't one thing. It was the temperature dropping so slowly I didn't notice until I was freezing. She nodded. "That's exactly how it was for me." We stopped under a streetlight near her car. She looked tired. Real. And then she said, "I did not expect to actually like you." I laughed once, short and bitter. "I didn't expect to like you either." Then she stepped closer and kissed me. Slow. Deliberate. A choice. And in that moment, the line I thought I had crossed earlier in the diner finally felt real. Because I was not just reacting anymore, I was deciding. I drove home with my mind quiet and sharp. Rachel was asleep when I walked into the bedroom. Back turned. Same posture as always, like she lived in a separate world even in our bed. I stood there looking at her and waited for rage. Nothing came. Just a clean, cold clarity. The next morning, I was at the kitchen table when she walked in with her blazer on and her phone already in her hand. "Morning," she said, reaching for a mug like nothing was wrong. "We need to talk," I said. She froze, then turned. "About what?" And I told her everything. The receipts, the card, the hotel. Her face drained. She opened her mouth. "I can explain." "Don't," I said. "I don't need an explanation. I need a divorce." Her eyes flashed, and she snapped. "You went through my things?" That was her first instinct. Not apology. Control. Then she shifted. Tears, softness, promises. "I will quit. I will block him." Therapy. Anything. But I listened and felt nothing, because I realized something. If she could perform for clients, she could perform for me, and I had been buying the show. I picked up a bag I had packed without realizing I was packing it. "I'm done being the only one fighting for a marriage you already left," I said. And I walked out. I checked into a cheap hotel off the highway. Buzzing bay walls, thin curtains. And I sat on that bed feeling the strangest thing, not heartbreak. Relief. Then came 3 knocks at the door. Not housekeeping. Not a neighbor. Someone who knew I was here. And my blood went cold, because I had not told anyone where I was. I stood there staring at the door like the wood could talk back. 3 knocks. Then silence. No footsteps, no voice. I moved slowly, peered through the peephole, and saw her. Leia hair, pulled back. Eyes tired. Jacket still half-zipped, like she had driven straight here. I opened the door a crack. "How did you find me?" I asked. She lifted her phone. "Your boss forwarded the address," she said. I told him it was urgent. Then she stepped inside like she had nowhere else to go. She sat on the edge of the bed and exhaled like she had been holding her breath for days. "I filed," she said. "Divorce papers. Official." Her voice should have sounded triumphant, but it sounded hollow. like relief mixed with grief. She told me Tom had tried to apologize. Flowers, excuses. That polished voice cheaters use when they realize consequences are real. I did not cry, she said. I just realized the moment I fight for someone who would not fight for me, Elosa myself. Then she looked at me and said, "That is not why I came here." My stomach tightened. "I need to tell you something before this gets complicated," she said. The way she said it, the way her fingers clenched on her purse strap, made my mind race. This was not about Tom. This was about her. About me. About what we had done under that streetlight. "Say it," I said. She swallowed. "When I watched you in that diner before I sat down, I was not just trying to expose your marriage," she said. "I was trying to decide if I should expose mine." I frowned. "Expose what?" She lowered her voice. "Tom was not the only reason my marriage was breaking," she said. "I was already leaving him in my head long before I found the affair. I just didn't know how to do it without breaking everything." She looked up, "And when I saw you sitting there, looking like a man holding his life together with sheer will, I thought, that is what safety looks like." The word safety landed heavy, because men like me do not get called that. Men like me get called stable, convenient, reliable. Safety is different. Safety is something you want when you are scared, and it made me wonder if I was just a life raft, or if this was something else. I stared at her. Then I asked the question that mattered. "Are you using me?" She flinched, like it hurt. "I am telling you because I don't want to," she said. "I don't want to be that kind of person. I don't want to drag you into my mess without you seeing the whole truth." We sat in silence. Then she said something that changed the air. "Tom knows something is happening. He is watching me, and I think he suspects you exist." A chill ran through me. "What do you mean watching?" I asked. She hesitated. "He has a temper," she said. "Not hitting. Not that. But the kind of anger that lives behind a smile. The kind that turns into control when he feels embarrassed." I felt my jaw tighten. "You think he followed you here?" She shook her head. "I don't know. But when I left my house, his car wasn't in the driveway. And when I drove here, I felt like someone was behind me for part of the way." My chest tightened. Because now this was not just betrayal. This was escalation. Two marriages breaking at the same time. Two cheaters realizing their games were exposed. Two betrayed spouses suddenly connected. That kind of situation does not stay quiet. I walked to the window and looked down at the parking lot. Nothing obvious, but the feeling that something had shifted would not leave. Leah stood behind me. "Nolan," she said, "if this is too much, tell me now." I turned. I should have said yes. I should have told her to go home. I should have closed the door on this whole thing and focused on my own divorce. But the truth was, she had stepped into my life with a match. And somehow, I did not want the fire to go out. Not yet. I said, "You can stay here tonight." "On the other bed," she nodded. Eyes glassy, relief flickering. We barely slept. Every sound outside felt louder. Every car door, every distant engine, my mind turned it into a threat. Morning came too fast. I drove to my job site because routine was the only thing keeping me from spiraling. And halfway through the day, my phone buzzed. A number I did not recognize. I answered, and a male voice said my name. Nolan Ridge. My blood went cold. "Who is this?" I asked. A pause. Then the voice said, "You've been busy." And before I could speak again, the line went dead. I stood there staring at my phone like it had teeth. That call lasted seconds, but it changed everything. Because now, it was not just a cheating scandal. Someone was reaching into my life. Someone knew my name, my number, my rhythm. I called Leah. When she answered, her voice sounded tight already, like she was waiting for me to confirm what her gut was screaming. "He called me too," she said, before I could speak. "Who?" I asked, even though I already knew. "Tom." "He didn't yell," she said. "That's what scares me. He was calm like he was smiling while holding a knife behind his back. My jaw clenched. What did he say? He said, "Tell your new friend." I said hello. Heat rushed into my chest. I told her to stay with her mother, to not be alone, to keep her daughter close, to not post anything, to not leave a trail. Then I called my lawyer, because here is what men learn too late. When you are dealing with someone who has already proven they can lie without conscience, you do not handle it with emotion. You handle it with paper. A few hours later, I got another call. Unknown number again? I did not answer. A text came through instead. "You think you can take what's mine?" I stared at the screen until my hands stopped shaking. Then I did something I did not expect to do. I went home. Not to reconcile. Not to cry. To retrieve evidence. To protect myself. I walked into my house like I was walking into a crime scene. Rachel was not home. Of course not. I went straight to the closet, pulled the shoebox, took photos of everything. Every receipt, every date, every charge, every little proof. Then I heard the front door. Rachel's heels. She walked in, talking on the phone, laughing, and the sound of her laugh did something to me. Not sadness. Disgust. She saw me in the hallway and froze mid. I ended the call. Primera Saeed calmly, and I watched her do it. Her eyes narrowed. "What are you doing here?" I held up the box, collecting reality. I said. Her face shifted, anger first, then fear. "You can't just—" I cut her off. I already did. Then I asked her the question that made her go still. "Does Tom know about me?" She blinked. "Why would he?" I stepped closer. "Because he called me." Her mask cracked. Just for a second, and in that second, I knew she knew more than she was admitting. Rachel swallowed. "Upset," she said. "Upset," I repeated, because he realized he wasn't just cheating with my wife. He was playing with my life, and now he was losing control. Rachel's voice turned sharp. "This is not your problem, Nolan." I stared at her. "Not my problem. You brought him into our life. Into our finances, into our bed." Then I said the sentence I had been holding like poison. "You made me a joke." Her eyes flashed with tears. "I didn't mean." I laughed once. Cold. "You never mean it until you get caught." I walked past her, took the box, took my clothes, and left again. But this time I did not go to a cheap hotel. I went to a friend's place, because the feeling in my gut was no longer emotional. It was instinct, and instinct was telling me something was coming. That night, Leah called me crying. "He showed up at my mom's," she whispered. My stomach dropped. "What do you mean showed up?" "He came to the door. He smiled. He asked for Maya. Like he was the perfect father. And then when my mom shut the door, he said through the crack, 'Tell her I'm not going to be humiliated.' I felt something turn hard in me. I told her to call the police. She said, I did. They said, unless he threatens us or breaks in, there's nothing they can do. That is when reality hits you. Sometimes the law is paperwork, but fear is immediate. And Tom was using fear. The next morning, my lawyer filed an emergency motion, restraining order request, documentation, screenshots. And that afternoon, Rachel finally texted me something that made my skin crawl. He knows where you're staying. When Rachel's message came in, I read it 3 times. He knows where you're staying. No apology. No explanation. Just a warning, like she was passing me information from the inside of a mess she helped create. My friend's house suddenly felt smaller. I looked out the window. Every car passing felt like a threat. This is what betrayal does, that nobody talks about. It does not just break your heart. It makes you paranoid. It makes you scan shadows. It makes you question every sound. I called Laya. We need to end contact, I said immediately. Her breath hitched. What? For now? I said, not because I don't care. Because if he is escalating, we need to take away his fuel. She went quiet. Then she whispered, "He's not going to stop just because we stop talking." I knew she was right. Because men like Tom do not chase love. They chase control. And when they lose it, they punish whoever made them feel small. I went to the police station with my lawyer. Filed reports, provided screenshots to call logs, the threatening text. The officer behind the desk looked tired. He said the words that make you realize how alone you are. "We'll document it. If ISO sub, call immediately." Document it? Like fear waits politely in a folder. That night, I sat in my truck outside a grocery store parking lot, watching the world move around me like nothing was wrong, and I realized something that hit like a revelation. I had spent years being loyal to someone who did not protect me. And now, the consequences were not just emotional. They were physical. I decided I was not going to be the guy reacting anymore. I was going to be the guy controlling the next move. I called Rachel and told her to meet me at a public place. She showed up tense, sunglasses on, like she was a celebrity dodging consequences. I didn't waste time. "I'm filing for divorce on grounds of infidelity," I said. "I have evidence. You can either cooperate and keep this quiet, or I can make it loud." Her lips parted. "You'd ruin me," she whispered. I stared at her. "You, Reen, you as..." She swallowed tense aside. "Tom is going to come after you. He thinks Yuri, the reason Leia filed." I almost laughed. "No. He thinks he owns people. That's the reason." Then I said the line that ended the conversation. "If you want to save yourself, tell him to back off. And if you can't, then I'm done protecting you too." Rachel's eyes filled with tears. For the first time, she looked like a woman realizing the game had consequences. "Primera wa, le que? How I not?" Because I felt strong. Because I felt free. Weeks later, the restraining order was granted for Leia. Temporarium, at first, then extended after Tom violated it by showing up again. My lawyer moved fast. My divorce moved faster than Rachel expected. Because when evidence is clean, excuses don't matter. Leia and I did not become some fairy tale overnight. We did not post smiling photos to prove anything. We built boundaries first. We rebuilt our lives quietly. And one day, months later, I was standing in a small kitchen, making coffee in a house that felt warm again. And I realized the irony. The worst morning of my life did not just expose my wife, it exposed me. It showed me how long I had accepted being half-loved. How long I had mistaken silence for peace. If you're listening and your gut has been screaming at you for months, hear me clearly. You're not crazy. You're not weak. You're not over. Sometimes your body knows the truth before your heart can admit it. And if this story hits something in you, subscribe. Not for me, for you. Because if this resonated, it means you're ready to stop accepting a life that is slowly freezing you. And if you want to keep going, I've got another story waiting for you right after this. The kind that reminds you that starting over isn't the end. Sometimes it's the first time you finally breathe. If you want, I can immediately extend this into the full 60th length by adding deeper subplots and higher tension beats while keeping the exact tone and pacing.